Remember that every expression has a value, and that every value has a type. In this video, I'm going to briefly introduce some of the types that we'll see in this course. And remember that different types are good for storing different kinds of things. Integers are good for storing round numbers, like the number of days in a non-leap year, and they can also be negative. Floats are good for storing decimal numbers, like a temperature, and they also can be negative. Strings are good for storing sequences of characters, like a name or a user prompt. And lists are good for storing sequences of anything, like a sequence of colors or a sequence of numbers. Dictionaries are good for storing key-value pairs, like information about a university. And finally, Booleans are good for storing whether something is true or false, and they only have two possible values. We'll go into more details in all of these types throughout the course, but it's important to recognize the type of a given thing. It's often useful to also be able to convert one type to another, so there are these casting methods, typically with the name of the type that you're converting to. So int converts to an integer, float converts to a float, str converts to a string, and list converts to a list. For example, if we wanted to convert the string 106 to an integer, then we would call int on the string 106 to get the integer 106. If we wanted to convert the float 20.2 into an integer, then we would call int on 20.2 and get the integer 20. And note that when we cast to an integer, we actually round down to the nearest whole number. So for example, if I called int 1.99, then I would get 1 as that value. If I wanted to cast the string 10.5 to be a float, then I would call the float method on it. And if I wanted to cast the integer 100 to a string, then I would call str on it to get the string 100. So for example, let's take the following relatively simple code, which creates val, which is an integer with value 55, and then we print out the value is plus val. If I try to run this, then I would get a type error because I'm trying to add this string to this integer. To solve that, what I would do is I would cast val as a string by calling the str method on it. So I quickly went over several examples of Python types and several tools to convert one type to another.